There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to know who we are?
All right, so introduce yourselves and tell them all a little bit about what you write and what you've written for 1632, particularly the humor.
Humor.
Yes.
Humor. Let's see.
Since this is the humor panel.
Amazing.
Is that how that works?
That's how that works.
You first.
My name's Brad Sinor. I wrote, I can't remember how many of the things.
I don't remember either.
A bunch.
A bunch.
Yeah, a bunch. Was this, hey, it works.
And I can probably hear you outside the door.
Oh, smile.
Just keep talking.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Among other things, I've written the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grant Villain
Brad
Visitor.
Brad is my co-writer on the Dennis and Betsy stories.
That's right.
And he also wrote second issue, which started the Grantville Inquisitor before we started writing together.
And also,
Well, you have, yeah, he has 4 novels published. And is, I don't know what you're working on, actually.
yeah, well,
We're just tired.
yeah.
All right, well, so my next question was going to be, what have been your favorite humor stories in 1632?
Actually, Grantville Inquisitor. I mean, I'm not saying this just because they're there. I just loved the Grantville Inquisitor. It's based on,
Thank you.
if the National Enquirer doesn't exist, I'm not sure they would have had the story idea. Let me just put that there for kind of where that started with the Grantville Inquisitor.
So Brad had written that, and that was out there in the universe before I ever started writing with him. And we were at a SoonerCon, and I think Paula was editing the magazine through Bain.
Grantville Gazette.
Grantville
Oh,
Gazette.
yeah.
And
That's you.
Brad invited me to pitch a story, and he said he would co-write with me. And so I came up with the idea for Betsy before we knew she was going to be Betsy, as this hapless reporter who loves. She's kind of crazy. She gets in a lot of trouble, and she likes movies.
Oh, yes.
And then we went onto the grid and we found somebody who looked like they might be a match, maybe. And it kind of all grew from that.
Yeah.
And then we just kept coming up with ideas, and I would pitch the idea to Brad, and he would start it and send it back to me, and it was like we would write them like a relay race. And the challenge for a while was to see what would be the most challenging way to have this story on fire before we lobbed the hot potato. And so we wrote a lot of them that way.
I do want to add one other one, since I keep bringing this up and you're here, is the Unexpected Sales Rep that Virginia DeMarce wrote. And I know humor is not what people think of first when they think of Virginia as a writer, but the Unexpected Sales Rep I found hilarious. It is my favorite of Virginia's by a country mile. If you haven't read it, highly recommend the Unexpected Sales Rep. And I will just say there is no genealogy in it.
Usually.
There you go, the Unexpected Sales Rep.
So there we go.
I say there were some free ones on the 1632
Yeah.
table.
There were a few, yep.
So there was, it was one of the earlier ones, the one with the battleship, where they were trying to get the cannons over the mountain.
Oh.
We need Bjorn for these questions.
Okay, so one of the earlier novels, I think it was the one where they were trying to build the battleship, and the army was trying to get a bunch of cannons over the mountain like it was Ticonderoga or something. And it ended in the funniest way, because you've got the army and they're trying to get these cannons over the mountain, and it's this total side thing separate from the main storyline. And then at the end, everybody's won, it's all over, and here comes the army. And it's like, it was this whole struggle they had, and it was all for nothing, because they managed to get the battleships built, and it didn't even need the cannons. That to me is prime humor. David?
I admire a good slapstick, so the Brillo stories just make me giggle. That whole, and that really, truly, those stories never should have been accepted, because the idea of the thinking, hearing the thoughts and emotions of the ram really should have been against the rules of writing. But it's a good story, so they took it anyway. But that chain of stories that Paula wrote, and they published in the Gazette, didn't they? Okay, my memory's failing. Didn't they put them in a book?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the Ram Rebellion.
Okay, I was thinking they went into Ram Rebellion.
Yeah. That Brillo was a theme all the way through it, because they even made a ballet about him.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, Brillo.
Brad, Sue, do you guys have any favorite humor stories, Grantville humor stories?
Not that I could think of, but
It's been a while since I've read any,
Okay.
but I think the Dennis and Betsy stories are probably the favorite. And I'm trying to think of if I did. It's been a while since I've written anything like that. Quite a while since I've been having computer problems and other things, but I do like those a lot. And next.
it's all right. Just a second.
All right, well, when you want to write humor, do you go into, what's your process like?
I don't have one. I'm a pantser. I'm very much a pantser. So I start writing things, and Irene tells me what to do. And that's kind of how it goes. And Irene, obviously, is Irene Flannery, who dies in 1632 in the Croat Raid in the very first novel. There's 3 sentences, 1 paragraph written about her, and then I wrote an entire novel, and she will not shut up. I have Irene, and she's really not that bad once you get to know her. And she's got an entire foundation in her memory and honor. And so I have Irene continuing as in the person of her foundation, and she is going to be sainted by the Celtic Christian Church. So Irene will be Saint Irene, and the people, when they find out about it in Grantville, Father Larry is going to be like, the only Irene I know is Irene Flannery. And they're going to be like, I was like, no, and they're going to be going, oh my Lord. So some things, and Mark gets blamed for this one actually, Irene being sainted. He was being a smart aleck and saying that Irene should be sainted, and he was like, yeah, you should do this. And I went, yeah, I should do this.
Challenge accepted.
I'm very much a go forward as a pantser, and when I get ideas or someone makes suggestions, I incorporate them, and I use as much humor as I can, because, I don't have to make Irene a saint, although, I mean, honestly, it's hard to have Irene being a saint being anything but humorous, because Irene. And, and again, then I don't have to have something where I show the reaction in town, but Irene is a saint. So I try and go with where I can have the more humorous responses as I'm coming up with the stories. So I don't necessarily plan a lot out, although when I have an idea, I try to think of ways I can use it humorously, like, having Father Lowry find out that the Celtic Christian Church has sainted Irene, and really it's a group that were helped by the Flannery Foundation within the CAD.
Mhm.
And they all are now part of the Celtic Christian Church. And so there's 120 of them, and there's like maybe 20 of them somewhere else. So 120 of them say she is. The other 20 are not going to get to overrule them because there's 120 of them and she's St. Irene, and that's it. So,
Okay.
you know?
Poor Larry.
And you know, like for the rest of the time, like if he's doing something and someone wants to derail Father Larry from whatever he's doing, they'll just have to be like, St. Irene, huh? And he'll be like, oh my God!
You know, I caught the humor when it was like very clear, you kids get out, stay out of my yard, you know, when they she said it to the wrong people. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot the question, what was the question? Oh, yeah, David, what's your process like when you want to write humor?
Well, it depends on what kind of humor it is. If it is a situational element, like the story of Hair of the Dog, where I have a joke and I want to set it up and tell it in the story, then it's basically, I've already got the framework and I've already got the climax. I just have to figure out who's going to tell the story and put it down that way. On the other hand, if I'm already in the middle of writing and I'm at a place where something occurs to me, then it's going to be something that grows out of the characterization that I'm already building. And 98% of the time, my writing, it's a hackneyed trope, but my writing is character driven. Because 98% of the time, I come up with the characters first.
That's right.
Then I decide what kind of situations are they going to be in. But the vast majority of the time, I have the characters first. So most of the time, the humor grows out of what the characters already say, what the characters already doing, and it just occurs to me as I'm writing, and I just slide it in.
Sue?
Okay, well, my process is, I'm a pantser, so I think of something and I just start writing it. I don't, right now I can't think very well, but anyway, I don't plot. I might have once or twice, but I've
Everyone does something accidental. Accidents happen to us all.
I've written a number of short stories, not what I can remember though. I'm in the middle of something else, but it's not a 1632 story. It's something. It's a vampire story that I really want to finish. But anyway, I just sit down, and if I have an idea, I just work on it. So I don't know if it's good or bad. Nobody tells me.
It's hard to find answers to
He
answers.
would tell
I
me.
tell you.
Yeah, he would tell me.
All right, hey Brad, how about you?
Well, kind of both. Occasionally, they'll give me an idea of something, and I write with it. And other times it is, okay, let's try this.
I guess until you finish the story, it's always adjustable.
Yeah.
Or in the case of 1632, until Bjorn buys it.
Yeah.
It's always adjustable.
Yeah.
I think I'm what you might call a plantser.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a story. I'll have like 2 or 3. Okay, this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and it might happen like this, and it might happen like this. Usually, if Betsy's involved, it might be, how do I work that cream pie in there?
Well, it shouldn't be that hard.
Well, that's keeping your character in mind and listening to what she wants.
Yeah, she's, I'm like, really? How big was the elephant today, Betsy? So, I think, are there any questions that I haven't asked?
Well, I think when we're done, we should ask the audience their
That sounds
questions.
like a good idea. Yes.
So, David, one of the things I've noticed in your books, and I love Descartes before the horse, those puns in that was absolutely brilliant,
That's Eric's story.
but it's under your name.
The cart before the horse.
But the premise that I'm thinking is with Alfred Hitchcock, he used to use humor to break tension. And when you are writing something that is very emotional, such as Marla losing her baby, do you manage to bring in a little bit of humor just to ease that emotion into the next part of the story?
That is going to depend on the goal of the story. Elegy, no way. The focus of Elegy was on the devastating loss of the child, and I would not have done anything
No.
to reduce that. I mean, the impact of that story depended on that. Other stories, it would depend, but it all for me. You know, every one of us has a different process. Most of the people on the panel are pantsers. I call myself a discovery writer, which is a pantser who knows how the story's going to end.
Exactly.
I have, the first thing I develop is the characters, the second thing I get is what the problem is going to be, and the third thing I get is what the ending is going to be, and I can't start writing until I have all three of those. Now, how I get from the beginning to the ending, as she says, it may be zoop, 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 or it may be this action, or it may be this action. How I get there depends on where the muse takes me. But I always know what the ending is when I start.
I will say for me, what I'm doing generally is I have a problem I want to address. And I'm writing the story as I work through the problem. Right? And so in Mrs. Flannery's Flowers, why did she care so much about these flowers that she was willing to die to protect flowers? Right? In the case of Crystal, she is in complete denial that they're going back through time and they're never returning to 2000. So how do I work her through the process of accepting their reality? Right? In Red Shield, I have the very prosaic, I want them to change from the name being the real world Red Cross that they're using to something that is not a real world name. Because everything we've done up through now very much matches what the Red Cross does in the real world. It's very one-to-one relationship, but that constrains potentially what it can do in the future. So if we want in the future to have what is Red Cross in the 1632 universe do something different than what they're doing in the real world, it's better to have a different name so that the expectations aren't that it's exactly the same, right? And so scouts are changing, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are changing, and they're becoming Pioneer Scouts. So when you have Pioneer Scouts, you no longer expect them to be learning things like how to build a fire, right? Which is something Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts both teach as a fairly fundamental thing, because people born in the 1630s know how to build a freaking fire, right? I mean, they don't need to know how to camp. They don't need to know how to do a lot of these things. So by changing the name, you no longer come into it with a 20th century set of expectations about what this organization is. So, you know, I was writing the story of how do you get to a point where the people in Grantville, the uptimers, are accepting changing a name for an organization they've always known. And it makes sense within the story and it works for the universe.
That's interesting because it's touching on something that the panel that was in here,
What readers want?
yeah, what readers want. You guys talked about the shift from 2000 and now a lot of stuff has happened. And there's a little bit of a challenge in that how do you write a character who diverged in 2000 from where we are now? Humor's changed a lot. And meta humor, you know, memes and whatnot, that has become a huge part of humor now. And so is there, from your point of view, I've found that I have to go back and when I write, I have to make sure that I'm not adding humor that, or slang words or something to what's coming out of my character's mouth that they would not know about.
Right.
And have you guys seen that as a challenge?
That is a constant challenge in
Yeah,
working in this
exactly.
universe, because we have to, we can expand and develop from what came back, but we have to remember that everything that came back stops in April of 2000.
We're living in a world without Grumpy Cat. They're living in a world without Grumpy Cat.
Yeah.
No,
Oh.
so wrong.
And the smartphone did
Yeah.
not exist.
Yeah.
And that there were very few cell phones at all in
Yeah.
They had
Granville.
desktops with Pentium chips.
I can remember
Sad.
being phoned by a scam company type thing where they wanted me to have a picture phone, a camera phone. And I said, why would I want a phone that takes pictures? Who am I going to send it to? I don't know anybody with a picture phone. They wouldn't have had it.
Yeah.
And yet now I can't imagine being without one.
Within reach at all times.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, stop, think about it. This is only 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yes, we've all,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
yes.
Being a little tacky, going back to the Inquisitor.
Yes.
My memory is faulty too. Has anybody written anything like a catch and kill story?
Like a most dangerous game type story?
No, not exactly. No, I mean like, and this is because we're patterning off of the Inquirer, okay?
Yes.
Whose owner has been caught being paid to catch and kill stories, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Stories don't see print.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my thing is, okay, we got plenty of counts and dukes and whatever that don't want their story told.
Yeah.
Are they gonna come along, has anybody tried coming along and paying our editor to kill the story? And how do we give the duke his comeuppance?
I think the closest that comes is the story that created the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor, if you've ever read the story that created the Inquisitor, they literally created the Inquisitor to destroy a story. Is you had a freelance reporter who had this story of
Been a while since I read it.
I remember.
Wallenstein. Yeah,
I
you had this
remember-
freelance reporter who had this story about Wallenstein, and they didn't
right.
want it getting out, and so he was not going to go to the Grantville Times since they wouldn't buy it. He was going to go to one of their competitors, and they're like, "How do we stop him?" And they created the Inquisitor and made it the front page story for that,
that's right.
basically to destroy his credibility.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
don't feel too bad for them. I brought this reporter back in the opening story for the Grantville Inquisitor, and I made him Betsy's main rival for front page articles,
All right.
in her own mind at least.
Different-
It's like, I don't even know you.
Just a different twist than I was thinking, but okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My the brain is not remembering.
But that's the whole story
Yeah.
behind the Inquisitor, is that in second issue, they created it as a one-off. It was they created the Inquisitor as a one-off to kill this reporter's credibility. And this character who helps to create this Inquisitor, she's like, oh no, this is selling great. We're gonna keep going with this thing. And that's how it comes about.
Exactly.
All right.
And that wasn't one of mine, that was all Brad.
There you go. Sorry.
Yeah.
talking about elements of humor in stories, one of the reasons, if you haven't read the private case files of Archie Gottesfreund, please do. That is an homage to Nero Wolfe. It's not a pastiche. It's not carbon copy Nero Wolfe stories. It's written as an honorific to Nero Wolfe and the Nero Wolfe series. So you can see bits and pieces of Nero Wolfe elements scattered through the book. And one of the ways that I did that, one of the ways I injected humor into it is Archie Gottesfreund, AKA Archie Goodwin. I turned him into a Scottish mercenary.
Hey,
And his speech pattern sort of resonates with Scotland. And you can do all kinds of humorous things with a Scottish speech pattern. And so that whole book, while it's done seriously, is just very fallow ground for just little drops of humor along the way.
Some of the visions in that you wrote, absolutely brilliant. Where am I? Where do you think? Look, you don't have much time. I don't have much time to talk, so you need to go on. Oh, okay.
All right, well,
I had a lot of fun with St. Jerome.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, well, we're nearly out of time, so do you guys want to leave any final thoughts, anything to promote, anything like that?
We're always looking for new authors, so any of y'all have ideas, please write.
You want to talk about
That
it?
really means the Grantville Inquisitor too.
Oh,
I'd love to see some short stories coming from that.
well,
And
we've got something.
we've got something in the works.
yay! That's just my personal opinion. I'm not the editor-in-chief. I don't make the final calls.
I would actually like to, when we were talking about maybe doing a second book and working out for some short stories, I would like to develop newspaper culture, because there's
Exactly.
there's multiple newspapers in Grantville, so there's room there for a newspaper war, and maybe
There is, and one thing that you guys may have seen online that we're starting to do more of, issue 100 of the Gazette was a themed issue around the committees of correspondence. Our next issue that we have for the current 1632 and beyond is themed around spies, because of this being a spy-themed convention that we're at right now. But we're going to be doing more themed ones.
you
And
want to talk about Redmond?
maybe we'll do Redbird, but we can maybe do something where we get more people writing about not just the magazines, but also there's some other publications, like there's, I think it's Black Cat Press, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have Redbird as our next themed issue. But isn't there a panel on Redbird? No? Oh, that was a salon. We had a salon call on Redbird that we did a couple months ago. Redbird is something new that we're developing in the 1632 universe outside of Grantville. It is based on the Chautauqua Institute and movement in the real world. So there's two parts of it. One part is that there's traveling groups that go around and teach people things. And the other part is a permanent location that's more or less adult summer camp. But it's also got a very strong tech component because it's in the 1632 world. So there's going to be a lot of different things available in there, and we're working on developing it, and we're working on mapping out where things are going to be in the world and figuring out that, like, we just had a call, and one of the things we were discussing is once the dam is built to make the lake there, how fast is it going to fill up? How many years are we looking at? How, in each year, how much deeper will it be, and where can we be building? So, for anyone who doesn't know, we really do a lot of detail in planning.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, final thoughts?
both private case files of Archie Gottis Freund and Letters from Gronau have been reissued by Bain as ebooks. So they are available again. Letters from Gronau is filled with humor because of the trope of the beginning writer working with the publisher and the publisher telling him, you can't write for crap kids. And by the way, red ink on yellow paper is not a good thing. So that kind of, those things are there. Just keep on keeping on.
Sue?
Find the humor where it is.
Sue, any final thoughts?
I'm sure I'll have some later. It's just been a morning.
Yeah,
Brad?
buy my books.
If you look at the back of each issue of the magazine, it'll tell you anything that's been released in the last 6 months and anything we know that's coming out.
All right, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for coming.
When he